right, guys. So, if you've ever struggled with high hamstring tendon pain or what we call proximal hamstring tendinopathy, I have a special guest with me today. We have Steph, who is a real runner who has overcome this condition. And I wanted to bring her on the show to share her story with you because I think many of you out there are going to resonate with what Steph was kind of struggling with and really where she got to the point of being able to run double digit long runs again without having to worry about that hamstring pain. So, Steph, you've listened to many podcast episodes before. Welcome, and thank you so much for
Thank
coming on
you.
the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I am excited to for you to share your story with our healthy runner community. And this is one of those kind of stubborn injuries. And I know there are a lot of runners in our community who specifically have this condition because I was actually just compiling our research study that we did over the summer. And there's a lot of members in our community who filled out the research survey. And we actually have some interesting results because in our sample of our 512 runners that filled out our survey, the most common injury location was actually the hip. And I think specifically that is because we have many members in our community who have had this high hamstring tendon pain or proximal hamstring tendinopathy. And this is a little contrary to the literature on runners and the knee and the foot and ankle being the most commonly injured location. So I think you sharing your story is going to be something that is going to be able to help out many who have this condition. So I'm excited to have you on the show. And if you can just give us kind of a little idea of before we did meet, what was your running looking like? How long have you been dealing with this left hamstring pain?
Yeah, to go all the way back to the beginning, I think the hamstring pain started about 5, 6 years ago, so it's been a while. And um, I had worked with a manual therapist in the area. I had actually undergone prolotherapy. I was doing I was PRing and what was it, 10Ks and some 5Ks and things like that. But it just got to a point where I could barely sit down anymore. It hurt to be in the car or anywhere. Like I always had to move around. And I did the prolotherapy. That's where they like take a little bit of your blood out of your arm and inject it straight into that tendon. And it worked temporarily. But I had my first son, and right after I had him, I got back into running and it came back immediately. I did prolotherapy again. It was a temporary relief. And then I was down to only running a couple times a week and maybe a couple miles at a time. I wasn't able to get back to that, half marathon distance that I really wanted to hit. It was just too uncomfortable and too painful. So I honestly gave up a little bit, and I was really frustrated and heartbroken because running's been so critical to my life and to my mental state, and I love it so much. So I wanted to get back to it. So um, a handful of months ago, I had another son, and after that, I tried to get back into running on my own, and the high hamstring pain came back immediately, so faster than even with my first pregnancy. So I had figured I'd tried the manual therapy, I've tried the prolotherapy, I've tried all this stuff on my own. I've done all the research, nothing was working. So I literally just started Googling and I came across your guys' website. I think I binge listened to like 15 or 20 podcasts and, and like read any material that you had. And I just loved how much material there was out there. And I just like, you know what? I'm gonna reach out to this guy and see if he can help. So that's when we met.
Yeah, well, I'm glad good old Google worked and you
Yes.
did find us. And this is very common, as I mentioned, of an injury, and you definitely had it for, I would say, on the longer side of things, 5 to 6 years of really kind of struggling with this. Um, So a couple of questions about the prolotherapy. So for those of you out there who aren't familiar with prolotherapy, it is one of these type of regenerative kind of medicine or regenerative treatments to treat like tendon pain. Um, and we get questions about it all the time, and the literature out there isn't definitive yet. There's some promising initial studies. However, there is no large scale studies looking at the efficacy. And I know many insurance companies don't pay for this. I'm not sure if yours did or not.
Nope.
Yeah, yours didn't either. So
No.
that's where we always kind of, because I get this question all the time in terms of like, should I get it or shouldn't I get it? Um, if someone does get it, I think the best thing to do, because the whole goal is to actually stimulate that healing process. It's like kickstart the healing process of the tendon. So my question to you is, when you did get it, either one time or the second time you got it, did you wind up doing like specific hamstring tendon strengthening or loading exercises after it by any chance?
Uh, we had started before the prolotherapy doing that, and it did help initially with some of the pain, but I probably didn't stick to it as much as I should have, or but it
Okay.
wasn't that much of a focus. So a big difference between what I was doing then and now is now the heavy focus with your program is all the strengthening and then the loading of that tendon. And even now, if I, for some reason, after a long run, feel a little bit of a twinge, it's like, okay, I'm gonna go do some Nordic curls, and then boom, it's gone.
Yeah.
So it's made that has made the biggest difference, I feel like, for me.
Okay. So that's good context. And yeah, I do feel like if someone does have the means to kind of try it, like I always tell, clients is, hey, it's not going to hurt you, certainly. Like if you have the means and you can get it done, and you want to do it, then what you need to do is X, Y, and Z after, right? So it's not one of those things of like, hey, this is going to be like the magic pill or the magic injection that is going to like get rid of your pain and keep it away forever. So just as an educational point for those out there who are considering prolotherapy, or you could have a couple of different procedures nowadays that are done kind of in this realm, and there's more and more coming out. Science continues to evolve, medicine continues to evolve. So that's something to consider, as well as, because I know you alluded to the fact of like manual therapy, and like I am a big manual therapist, even though I don't see clients in person anymore. I teach that content to our physical therapy students, and I do believe that it does open up that window of opportunity. Manual therapy can be very effective at decreasing pain. We know that, but it opens the window of opportunity so someone can actually do the specific exercises and loading exercises that they need for tendon injuries. So whether it is hands-on manual therapy, whether it is instrument-assisted soft tissue massage, or most popular is the Graston technique, people might have heard of, or dry needling, right? All of those kind of treatments that you can get done on your own body can be beneficial at reducing pain, but it's not going to actually treat the tendon and prevent it from coming back in the future. So I think you're kind of living proof there, Steph, is like that was kind of your experience. And I remember when you had reached out because you were only 12 weeks, right, after your second son was born.
Yep.
And yeah, I remember, on our call, I was really making sure you were a good fit, to make sure that there, were no issues postpartum wise. You had clearance from your OB that it was safe to kind of get back into running. And I remember we had a kind of conversation about that in terms of like pelvic floor strengthening and how, was your strength in general? Were you having any symptoms, things like that? And you were kind of a good fit for us to be able to, start working together and getting some guidance for this hamstring pain. So, when we did start working together, what were some of the things that were like, most beneficial for you, or that you kind of noticed some changes kind of right away?
Yeah, I would say for me, I wasn't sure even where to start. I had gotten to a point where I didn't know how to even to start running. I was kind of doubting my own programs because I had I had hurt myself again. So for the running program perspective, it was very gradual, kind of that just getting into it again and just start easy. And I think one of the first conversations we had, you're like, Steph, you need to go slow. Like, you need to go very slow, take your time, like, don't be in a rush, don't get hurt. And I think I started doing those initial, I think it was like 3 minutes of running, 2 minutes of walking, something like that. It was like very interval based, very, 1 mile warm up of walking. So I was starting at the very beginning. I think you and I immediately started talking about just kind of like that training methodology of when you do run, don't go too fast. There's no need, there's no benefit to going out and trying to run an 8-minute mile. Just take it easy. So,
Yeah, no,
um,
that's definitely, and that's I would say a common problem that I see in a lot of runners who are kind of coming back from a specific injury or pain is that you think about either doing what you used to do, right? Or even if it is to a lesser extent, sometimes depending upon the kind of what we call level of tissue irritability, right? And we kind of determine that by a number of factors, not just like how much pain you're in, but how long does the pain last? Like, does it hurt when you're running or is it only after you're running? So there's all those kind of variables that, we make these clinical decisions on. And sometimes it is better to start out with a walk run intervals, right? And having those in a progressive fashion. And that's kind of, I remember what we did do is kind of increase the amount of run time as opposed to the walking time. And you felt like that was helpful in the beginning where your pain levels really reduced fairly quickly, right?
Yeah, I think it's the first phase of your coaching is that rehab phase, right? So it was focusing on decreasing the pain that I had. And I think in those first 4 weeks, it had gone from a 5 or a 6 down to like a 1 or 2, kind of, a pain scale from 1 to 10. The other thing that I found obviously beneficial was the strength program. So in that rehab phase is really focused on obviously getting the pain levels down and then focusing on the areas of your body that are specific to runners. So it was, these are the very specific abductors you need to do, or I don't know if we started with Nordic curls or built up to that, but essentially here, the running specific exercises to, one, help reduce your pain, and two, help to get you like um, that base so you can run. So it's the getting, I think I heard one of your other podcasters say this as, it is getting fit to run, not running to get fit. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, you got to strength train in order to run, right? Yeah. No,
100%.
I love that. And yeah, those initial exercises, like I remember we had done like the single leg bridges, right, with the slow lowering.
Yes.
So some of this for those that are kind of new to this topic or even tendon healing, a lot of these chronic tendon problems, what we need to do is we need to add stimulus and load to it. And one of the ways that we do that is what we call eccentric exercises or training. So this is a slow lowering phase, or some people might think of it as like a negative in the gym if you ever did like negatives. So like we had did that 5 second lowering and then the Nordics as well during that kind of rehab, or what I like to call like the restorative phase, right? So we were actually quote unquote rehabbing your hamstring tendon, but at the same time you were building up in your running, which was pretty neat to see. And I was very happy, like on our 1 month follow up call, that your pain levels were reduced and you were able to kind of go into the next phase, which is where we kind of rebuild your body now to be more stronger and more resilient. So you can start. And that's when we started not doing the intervals, and we had you just go out there for, hey, you're going to do your first 2 miler, you do your first
Yeah.
3 mile run without walking. How do you feel about that? I remember you were excited actually.
I was excited, but it was tiring at the time. Yeah. But in like a good way. But yeah, I just remember going out for that first run and be like, oh wow, that felt pretty good. Like, it feels nice to be able to run without feeling all that pain. So it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned kind of the rehab specific exercises that were helpful and like the other strength exercises. Is there anything as part of our kind of 16-week, coaching program that you found also helpful for you?
Yeah. There, I'll say probably three main things. Is one, from the strength perspective, it was, here are the different parts of your body that you should be working that are very runner specific. So it's not just doing, hey, go out and do a bunch of squats or um, things that might not necessarily, I mean, those might be helpful, but not necessarily extremely helpful, or those different parts of your body. Um, but yeah, it was the runner specific exercises. And um, there was it, it includes jump training, it includes single leg training, all of that stuff. Or if I had a small issue here or there, I'd just text you and you'd be like, hey, add this in. And then, handful of days later, I felt better. So it was always really helpful to be able to quickly message you and you were able to kind of help on the fly. So the strength piece, again, being very runner specific. So, hey, what I'm doing is right, and this will help me. And then there was obviously the run plan. So building up from the intervals with run walk intervals up to, kind of the smaller mileage. And then we started doing more long runs. And over the 16 weeks, I think the last week I hit double digits. So it was my first pain-free 10-mile run in 6 years,
That's
which was,
amazing. That is
yeah,
amazing.
which
Yeah, no.
I got a little emotional at the end. It's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
I know. I'm so
Yeah,
happy for you, honestly.
thank you.
And just because, I could tell how motivated you were, right? Like coming back from baby number two, right? And, to get back into kind of, running fitness and like just feeling, right? Like probably like yourself again, right? And just getting back that part of your life. And yeah, I'm just so glad that you were able to get back there. And that's just amazing. Like first time in 6 years, which is really
Yeah,
neat to see. And the messaging aspect of it is something that I really truly love in what I do nowadays, because, you know, 10 years ago, if I was seeing a client, who has hamstring, tendon pain in the clinic, it'd be like, okay, I'm going to, work with them when they're with me in the clinic, but I'm not able to actually have that communication of when something creeps up, right? And be able to provide that like real time feedback. And I found that so helpful, especially like when you had some minor things kind of creep up and it was
yeah,
like, oh no, let's adjust here, and okay, let's do this exercise or let's take this exercise out, and be able to kind of like adjust on the fly, is really neat, because I think it really helps prevent a lot of the injuries that happen that we as runners like just tend to ignore, and we'll just wait till the stove gets so hot and it gets
yeah,
so painful that now it's caused us to finally like do something about it. And it unfortunately is usually like that instance that we actually stop running, which is just terrible, right? Because it's the thing that we love to do, and it's the thing that we really enjoy doing. So yeah, no, I'm glad that that was helpful for you. And you mentioned that you're doing, double-digit long runs now. Yeah, so what has that meant to your life? What, like, how have has things changed for you now that you are able to kind of run consistently throughout the week? How many times are you running a week, by the way?
so I'm running 4 times a week. So I shifted things up since we started, and I'm going to be doing my long runs on Fridays because it's just a little easier with the kiddos and things on the weekends. But yeah, so it'll be 4 runs a week, 3 days a week of strength training, and then as part of that strength training is like the mobility and stability pieces of it too, which make a big difference for me. Um, yeah, I think that's the plan right now. So, and I
Yeah.
think the goal is to slowly build up that base run. I think the last we talked about is try to get in the high 20s, like total mileage per week before training season starts next spring, because I've got a half marathon. I think it's June 17th. So,
Awesome. And I can't wait for
mhm.
you to run that one. When was the last half marathon that you did?
I think I did a virtual race. It would have been, I think, in 2020. That was 10 miles. And I just kind of grit through it, and it hurt a lot. So
Yeah.
that's why I earlier said it's the first pain-free 10 miles I've done in a long time. I got through that one, but it wasn't pleasant.
So this would
So
be the first in-person race, definitely
yeah.
pre-COVID. Like, yeah. So
Hmm.
yeah, this is exciting. This is very, very exciting for you. And what do you feel like, with us kind of finishing up this kind of 16 weeks of working together, what do you feel like you have with you now to kind of move forward, right, in your running journey?
Yeah, so I'll say one confidence is that, hey, if you do get injured, that's not the end of your running career, right? Like there's ways you can work through it in rehab, and get better even if you've had chronic problems. Um, Another thing would be, I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, is I feel like now that I have almost like a tool set or a toolkit, however you want to phrase it, that when something comes up, I know, oh, hey, I need to do these, hip abductions, or oh, hey, I need to work on my hamstrings more, or um, I need to adjust my form in this way. Like, I feel like I have that base of knowledge. And then if for some reason it's something completely new, I know I can reach out to you guys to help me out. So,
Yeah, no, that's one of the important factors, and I really, stress with my clients just like you is really empowering you, right, and educating you on the why we're doing what we're doing, and I think that's so important. Versus, again, kind of going back to I'm very anti sick care model, right? So if you have an injury, you go in and you have someone, rub on this area, whatever, make you feel better. But if they don't provide you the tools so you can actually make it feel better yourself, and you can get it better if something creeps up in the future, then how valuable is that to you, right? So, and you've been like a total student of the game. I love it. And you're who we love working with, right? Someone that is motivated, they want to learn, they're going to implement, they're ready to take action. And you just did all of that. Like, you've checked all those boxes. This is a very stubborn injury. And, for someone like yourself who's had it for 6 years, like, your results were tremendous, because the longer someone has something like this, it is usually takes longer. And for you to have such a dramatic decrease in pain levels early on, so we were able to progress to that next phase, and the fact that we started adding in some faster elements of running
yeah.
and longer runs, and it didn't, creep back in, I know that you did the work, right? Like, you did the work. I was your guide. I didn't do the work actually for you. I've been doing my own hamstring work to prevent my PhD from coming back, but you're the one who put all the work in. So, kudos to you for,
Thank you.
actually doing the work, and, showing up and executing the plan and following through and wanting to learn more. And, I'm just so happy that you have this toolkit now that you're going to be able to take with you, into your future running journey. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Another random thing is that I had some help too. Is I have an amazing husband who built me a Nordic
Oh,
curl piece of equipment for my home gym, out of like spare metal that he had. And so now it's super easy to do them at home. And then he also built me a box, like a jump box too, so I could progress my jump training as well.
oh my goodness. I know you
Yeah.
are like so spoiled.
I
For
am
those,
100% spoiled.
for those that don't know what the Nordic curl is, I'm going to try to uh, verbally explain this exercise to you. You put your feet under something really sturdy. So if you go to a gym, you put it under like a metal bar of like one of the machines. A lot of times the cable column machines have like a good height off. Or now in my gym, I actually use the Smith machine. I bring the bar all the way down. I kind of use a pad to kneel on. I put some weights on the side of the bar, and that holds my legs down. I have a lot of clients that do this like under a sofa, under a coffee table, under a dresser. But Steph has had the luxury of having a really handy husband, and she showed me the picture of her setup. I was like, this thing is awesome.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
We should get it like patent or something. You guys could probably make a lot of money about like the Nordic hamstring like exercise equipment that people can
Right.
install in their house. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was definitely helpful for you. And for those that are looking for kind of the exercises and or a little bit more guidance on, this hamstring tendinopathy, I have a whole ebook on this topic. So I will definitely drop that link in the show notes so you guys can, get a little bit more guidance on this topic, because I know it is not one of those common ones. Like, this was my whole actually running epiphany story, is when I myself went through this as my first running related injury after my hip arthroscopy for my labral tear. And I realized, even as a sports PT and was treating a lot of sports related injuries, that I really didn't know how to treat PHT in runners. And it was a lot different than what I learned in PT school. So that was my whole kind of running epiphany story with running injuries and how you treat them, and really changed my outlook on how I do care for runners. So I have a whole ebook on that, and you guys can get that information. Is there anything else that you think would be helpful to share with anyone, or any last kind of recommendations that you have if someone is struggling, with this pain, or even if they are maybe on the fence about, working with our team as part of our
Mhm.
kind of healthy runner coaching program?
Yeah, I'll just say, before we started meeting, and before we did kind of the first like interview, I had gotten to a point where I was like, oh, I can't run anymore. I'm just gonna have to give up. And it meant so much to me to be able to run, from very kind of emotional and mental point of view. It's always been important to me. It's kind of my reset button, right? To deal with, stressors, things like that. Plus it just feels good. Um, so I had hit a point where I just don't think I can run anymore. And then that's when I happened to find you guys, and even doing a lot of research on my own, being, like you said, kind of that academic, you know, person. I've always been that person. I I just didn't feel like I could do it on my own. And so reaching out to you guys, making that investment. I remember talking to my husband about it. It's like, hey, are you okay with this? Should we do this? He's like, you need to make the investment in yourself. Um, People talk a lot about self-care now. This is one of those things in my mind. If you love running, make the investment. It's 100% worth it. Put in the work. If you're going to do it, go in 100%. Don't half it. Just do it. Prioritize it. I always talk about people I know who don't prioritize working out and they wish they were healthier. You got to prioritize it. You can do
Yes.
it. It's sometimes hard. It's sometimes difficult. 4 a.m. wake ups on traveling days, but just do it. So anyways, I would say 100% worth every minute, every penny. I've got running back in my life. I've got um, just overall physical health. I feel a lot better. I feel stronger. I feel smoother when I run. You do the running form corrections. It's just hands down probably one of the smartest decisions I've made in myself.
I'm just so happy. Like, that's exactly like why I do what I do. So thank you for sharing that. And again, I commend you, because yeah, you take action, right? You're an action taker, and I could tell you're like that, as I'm sure, as a working mom, right? So in your job, you take action. As a mom, I'm sure you take action. As a wife, right? And running
Yeah.
is that thing that probably helps you, right? Have some of that clear head and focus that you need. And I'm just so glad that our paths crossed. And I just, I'm going to continue love seeing your improvements in your running journey as you continue. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to kind of share your story with our community. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. And thank you for you and your whole team for all your help. I literally would not be here without you guys, so I really appreciate it.
All right, guys. So if you are struggling with PHT or high hamstring pain or stubborn running injury, take Steph's advice, like take charge, educate yourself, get the right help that you need, and really, put in the work to really get down to those root causes of the problem. Hopefully, this story was helpful for whatever you are going through in your running journey. And again, I'll put the resources in the show notes regarding PHT. And if you want to see if you're a good fit to kind of work with myself to overcome this, like Steph did, then you can also grab a slot in the show notes to hop on a call with me, and we'll see if you're a good fit. As always, guys, let's maintain a strong mind, a strong body, and let's just keep on running. Until next time.